Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course, and pleased to be joined by the head football coach at Milford High School. That, of course, is Andrew Micovich, entering in his third season. Andrew, how are you?
Doing great, Casey. We just ended our summer activities, and we are just kind of now working out, waiting until August 12th so we can get rolling. Super excited. Had a great summer. So,
Countdown is on. I got to ask you, this past summer, just talk about how it's going.
yeah, for sure. We try to keep everything as limited as we can. We want to keep our burnout factor really low for our coaches, players, and parents. So, we don't ask a ton from the kids as far as on-field football stuff. I want to say probably, definitely less than a regular work week for the regular 9 to 5ers. So that way we get a lot of high participation and attendance. We never do anything Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have a ton of kids playing travel lacrosse and travel baseball and all that. So, like I said, we try to do the bare minimum it takes to be competitive in our conference. So, had several 7-on-7s, couple of camps, couple of practices, and then we work out as much as possible, trying to get that last, edge before fall starts, before football starts.
Yeah. Before we get into this year, I always like when the coaches recap the previous year. I know last year was a very good year for Milford football, one of the best years that the program has had in a very, very, very long time. Just to talk about the continued progression since you've became the head coach, what has that been like for you just to see the climb of Milford football continue to go up and up?
For sure. Yeah, it's been great. It's been awesome to see. It's been awesome to be a part of. It's been awesome to spearhead. I think, accumulation of bringing in a bunch of talented and committed coaches, and then also having just a influx of talent and players and guys with really good discipline that want to continue to develop once they get to the high school level. So our youth program is booming right now. We have 3 teams at every level, instructional, freshman, JV, and varsity, with close to 300 participants. So there's a lot of great athletes here in Milford, not just at the high school level, but at the lower level as well. So when they're doing really well, it makes it easier for us to do really well. And when we do really well, maybe gets more kids out there for our youth program. So it kind of is a self-fulfilling circle. Last year was really fun for us. We had a great time, kind of riding the wave a little bit, trying not to get too high and never getting too low. But it was really exciting. Had an opportunity to make it to the playoffs again. We played for what we decided was a conference championship game against Walled Lake Western. Um, so competed what we felt like was really well. Our seniors led us like they usually do. And we're looking forward to seeing who kind of fills those shoes and who's going to step up this year.
Okay. All right. So now it's time to go through, speaking about this year's team. Now you get to go through and do one of your favorite things, talking about your guys, the guys that are returning and some of the guys to watch. Let's start with the skill positions, and then we'll work our way down.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start offensively. Landon Murray, probably the top of everyone's list. My list specifically. He's a big wide receiver, fast, really good hands, really good ball skills, great effort blocking. Um, kind of a leader of sorts. We haven't picked out captains yet. That's something we'll vote on the first week of practice. But a guy that you don't mind, leading your guys out. We expect him to have a ton of production. I said it last year and didn't come to fruition. Lane and I have had a ton of conversations about what we need to do, myself included, to get him the season he wants. So that way Milford football can have the season they want or we want. And so expect a lot of targets going his way. Um, Tanner Petru is a second-year varsity player. Came up a little bit as a sophomore a couple of years ago, upcoming senior. 5'8", about 185 pounds. Going to be a 4-year varsity baseball player. little muscle hamster. This dude is yoked. He's strong. He's big. Maybe not in height necessarily, but you look at him and he's a well put together kid. He runs extremely hard. He's our second fastest kid in our program, with a 4.66. Uh, Probably one of our strongest kids, benching, upper 200s, almost 300s. He's just a really good athlete. We expect to get him and landing the ball all the time. I mean, those are some things that our offensive coaches want to emphasize is how can we get those to the ball specifically. Then you have Owen Stark, who is a returning player for us, plays receiver. We're excited to get him more involved. We've got Brady Hagemeyer coming back, played a lot of snaps for us at the tight end spot. He's battling at quarterback right now, but we know regardless if he's at quarterback or at tight end, he's going to be someone that we're looking to get the ball to. One of those sneaky athletes with pretty good ball skills. JT, as we call him, Caden Johnson Thompson, played a little bit of quarterback for us last year when Ryan went down for 2 weeks with a torn ACL, which is, I mean, we can speak to his toughness from last year, but I won't get into it. So he played quarterback for 2 weeks against Northern and against South Lyon. And then the rest of the year, he played a slot position for us. And I would say towards the second half of the season, really made an impact there as well as at quarterback in those 2 games, leading us to 2 victories. So those are probably our 3 or 4 bigger weapons on offense as far as returning seniors. And then guys that maybe didn't have a huge role last year, Griffin Hudacek, we're expecting him to play a decent amount of slot receiver. Jack Stein, expecting another senior, expecting him to play a decent amount of slot receiver. So we're excited about those guys on the offensive side of the ball for sure.
All right. Let's go to the offensive and defensive line.
Absolutely. So offensive line wise, we have Luke Bargowski, who will be a 3-year starter for us. Our Iron Man. I think he made it to 80 workouts from November, December, up until the end of May. So he's just a guy that's extremely committed to the weight room. One of our strongest players on our team. Somebody that's matured over the last 3 years tremendously. A guy that you don't mind sitting down to and talking with. We went to a lot of grad parties this year, and Luke and I always found each other sitting at a table talking about football. So really looking forward to him kind of having a really good season. Our center going to be Owen Petrucia, who is a upcoming senior as well. Didn't get a ton of playing time last year, but similar to Luke, put in a lot of time in the weight room, and those two are by far our strongest kids. And then we have Tyler Lee and Joe Watson as returning starters for us, both going to be upcoming seniors. So really we're 4 out of 5 starting positions will be seniors for us. We're excited to have that experience. We're excited to have that maturity. And those 4 work really well together. A new addition to our squad, Caden Sakow, is fighting for that other guard spot. He's got the leg up right now. And I would say at 6'1" plus, 290 pounds plus, he brings a load as far as his blocking and his mentality. We're excited to, see what he does. And then defensive line wise, we graduated 2 all-region players in Kyle Schofield and John Moats. There's big shoes to fill there. We have a returning player, Jaden Dorsey, who got plenty of reps for us last year as a junior. He's going to be a senior this year. We have a sophomore coming up, Ben Vanderlist, who we're extremely excited about 6'1", 215, 220 pounds. He's fighting for an offensive line spot as well. His dad is our head JV coach. His dad played at Northern Michigan back in the day, so there's some great roots there. Really good player. Excited to see his development. Hudson Vargo is another upcoming junior, or the first upcoming junior, I should say. 6'1", 6'2", about 220 pounds. So we got a bunch of those types running around. He ran a 4.88 laser time. Talking about a guy who can probably dunk a tennis ball, potentially a volleyball. So really good athlete. So we're excited to see, those 3 guys with a mixture of others and see how the kind of that defensive line shakes out. We have one of the best defensive line coaches in our area in Uday Singh. And we brought on Evan Welch. Those 2 played together at Hillsdale, and Uday stood up in Evan's wedding. So some pretty good buddies, and there's no better place to hang out with your best friends than on a football field. So we do that with our players, but also our coaches.
Yeah. Let's go to the linebackers and defensive backs.
Yeah, absolutely. Starting off with linebackers, this is the spot where we do bring back a decent amount of experience. Ike Stuffed, um, 3 year, 3.5 year starter for us. Um, since he came in as a freshman. Big kid, 6'2", 6'3", 215, 220 pounds. A guy that played a little bit of defensive end for us last year when needed. A guy that played outside linebacker next to Wyatt Lesnu, who graduated as our leading tackler in school history. We expect big things from Mike. He's done a great job in the offseason, which we call November to through May, and then in the preseason, which we consider June and July. Great leadership, great player, great work ethic. He's been more vocal this year. A guy that is easy for others to rally around. Caden Johnston, going to be a senior for us, 2-year starter. Had 30 TFLs last year. When I tell people that, they usually do not believe me. He's probably one of the best edge setters in our area. He's tall, gangly, but well put together, and just finds a way to make plays on the edge there. And the other linebacker spot in our 3-3 system, I would say, is TBD. We're rotating through a bunch of guys right now, leaving no stone unturned. And we'll see how that ends up shaking out. But Brady Hegemeyer, who I mentioned, Tanner Petrie, who I mentioned, and others are all fighting for that third linebacker spot.
Yeah. What about,
And then,
okay, go ahead.
sorry, yeah. So defensive backs, got a couple guys that do double duty as well. Jack Stein, who I mentioned, Owen Stark, who I mentioned, Landon Murray, who I mentioned, Jack Stein, who I mentioned. We have some upcoming juniors who we're really excited about. Noah Pike being one, Brandon White being another, Hunter Skatska, Declan McMillan. We got a bunch of defensive backs. I feel like we're kind of like the Lions, right? Where we like our top two, but we got another 4 or 5 battling for those spots. So however it ends up shaking out, I think we'll be just fine there.
Absolutely. All right. Let's go to special teams. Where are we at there?
Sure. Yeah, I would say this is the biggest unknown for us. Last year, Mason Stislicki was awesome. He was our kicker and punter for the last 3 years. We're getting a bunch of soccer kids coming out, kind of seeing what fits. We're going to have all of our guys, what we call, tryout per se for special teams. We'll let everybody punt. We'll let everybody kick, and we'll see how it shakes out. Long snapper wise, we're a little bit more solidified. Griffin Hudacek, who I mentioned previously, long snap for us. Hunter Skatska, who I mentioned in the defensive backfield as well, long snap for the JV. So I feel like long snapper is maybe a little bit more concrete than punter and kicker are right now. But we have a junior who also plays tight end, Noah Masuda, big kid, 6'3", 220. Like I said that a million times now, but I think he'll end up being our punter. He's got a huge leg on him. But kicker is a complete unknown. We're really just going to have to roll the dice and see what happens. But we're excited to do so.
All right. Okay, now we've talked about all the kids. Now
Mhm.
let's talk about the schedule that you guys have. And of course, it's gonna look very familiar to you guys. Of course, we start off at home on August 29th against Waterford Kettering, obviously your alma mater.
Yeah.
September 6th at South Lyon East. September 13th, home against Dearborn Divine Child. September 20th at South Lyon. September 27th, home against Walled Lake Northern. October 4th at Walled Lake Central. October 10th at Walled Lake Western. October 18th, home against Waterford Mott. And finishing out the regular season, October 25th, home against Lakeland. So pretty good schedule, as it's the same exact teams as you saw last year. But what's as you probably know, the LVC is a pretty tough division to win. I know that you were right in the mix of it, and it's it's a place where you guys have not been in a long time. But so what was it like to contend last year, and really the outlook for the division this year?
Sure. So contending last year was great. I felt like in conference play, our kids played their best. We were in every single game, I believe, at one point or another. Um, we were either leading, whether it was one score or two. So it's great. It gives our kids great experience. So coming back, it's something that you mentioned we haven't achieved before ever, as far as the LBC being created. So we want to be in the mix. We want to be in the mix. We want to make sure that we continue to gain the respect of the teams in our conference. And we want to, do our best to bring home some hardware. We were talking before this, our basketball team with back-to-back district championships. As somebody that went out to celebrate afterwards with the basketball staff, it's like, man, you just want to bring home that hardware for your school and your community, and kind of leave your mark in the history book. So we want to contend. We do take a week by week approach. I would say we've started out slower than we've wanted, maybe the last year or so. So we're definitely not overlooking anybody. We're excited to play Kettering week 1. It's youth night for us. So our youngsters do a great job. I mentioned earlier, we have 300 players in that program. And last youth night we had, there was a Let's Go Milford chant for about 45 minutes in pregame, right at the opposing sideline. So you can't beat that. So we're excited for that. So once we get that one rolling, hopefully we come out on top, and it really kind of sets the table for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Okay, so you kind of talked about this in the beginning of the episode, but kind of take us through what the next few weeks are going to look like for this program before we head into the big day on August 12th.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next couple of weeks just involve a bunch of working out. We've handed out equipment. Um, we've kind of laid down the logistics. We have some fundraising that we need to finish up. Our players have done a really good job so far. Like I had mentioned, that's what we consider our preseason phase right now. We've had probably 70 to 80 kids on average in our weight room per day. We've topped out at somewhere around 100. Our program numbers in general have increased. I think we went from 98 to 100 to 101 last year, up to probably 125, 130 players. So it's just really nice to see the continued growth that you had mentioned earlier in the episode. So if we have about 1,250 to 1,300 students in our school, I mean, we're talking about 10% of all the whole student body, maybe 20 to 25% of the boys in the school out on the football team. So, the culture is really coming around here, and it's something that, we're excited to continue to, grow.
Yeah. All right. Well, Andrew Micovich, the head football coach at Milford, thank you so much for taking the time. And we will definitely talk to you in a few weeks when I make my visit out to the 8th annual Casey's Camp Tour as we start our tour in a few weeks.
Sounds good, Casey. Always appreciate talking with you. Appreciate you supporting Milford football and continuing to kind of blast us out to the social media masses.